They erased me from the will, said I was just the record keeper, that I didn't belong at the table, only beneath it, filing their secrets. But what they forgot was who built the archive, who knew which signatures were real, and which were written in fear. So when the courtroom doors opened, I wasn't there to fight for an inheritance. I was there to reveal the system. They thought I'd never survive. My name is Elara Wynn, and this is not a story of revenge. It's the end of theirs. It started with a system audit, just routine, just digital dusting. At least that's what they told me. I was in the archive room, alone, as usual. The overhead lights flickered like they always did. A hum in the silence, as I sifted through the family's sealed files. Decades of contracts, titles, and generational lies. That day, I was restoring a corrupted scan of my grandfather's original will, the document everyone believed had been lost in a flood. A tragic loss, they called it. But here's the thing about floods. Water doesn't usually delete metadata, and metadata doesn't lie. When I recompiled the file, a single line blinked back at me in the terminal log. Signed, Elara Wynn Year. 2020, key ID, 00-41-7E. I froze, not because of the name, mine, but because of the timestamp. 2020, that was the year I was recovering in Zurich. After a cardiac incident they called stress-related. I hadn't touched a terminal in 9 months, wasn't allowed near one. And yet, there it was, my digital fingerprint, on a document I'd never seen, in a will I wasn't supposed to be in. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Then I realized it wasn't an accident, it was planted. Someone wanted it found, someone wanted me blamed, but they also underestimated me. I didn't call my attorney, didn't email the circle, didn't even breathe differently. I did exactly what they taught me to do. Trace the chain, verify the source, follow the anomaly, without making noise. And the more I followed it, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about erasing me from the will. It was about rewriting history. In a system they thought I wouldn't dare touch. But they forgot I wrote the damn system. By spring, the lawsuit arrived, delivered not with a knock, but with silence, slid under my door like a threat wearing perfume. The envelope was cream-colored, embossed, and empty of apology. Inside, a 27-page petition from the family estate attorneys, declaring the revised will, and erasing me from it. No assets, no role, no acknowledgement. It wasn't just exclusion, it was surgical. The new will named 4 heirs, my uncle, 2 cousins, and my mother, each with their own lawyers. Smiles sharp enough to cut paper. They claimed I forged documents, that I used my access to rewrite assets, that I wasn't of sound judgment since Zurich. They painted me as unstable, lonely, a liability hiding behind old titles and hard drives, and the press hungry as ever. They ate it whole. I didn't speak, didn't tweet, didn't hire a PR firm, because this wasn't a scandal. It was strategy. You see, the circle, the secret network my grandfather built, wasn't just about wealth. It was about custodianship, stewards of information, keepers of systems, archivists of truth too dangerous to publish. And while they took pride in their inheritance, I carried something else, the chain keys, the zero-layer backups, the vault access points no one else remembered existed. They thought they'd silence the heir, but they'd only awaken the archivist. And an archivist doesn't speak first. We listen, we gather, we wait. Until the right courtroom. And the wrong lie. The courthouse smelled like old ink and older secrets. Marble floors, mahogany doors. Security scanners that blinked red when they saw my name. I didn't flinch. I wore navy that day, sharp, clean lines, no makeup, no smile, no family crest, just presence. The opposing counsel introduced 432 exhibits, PowerPoint timelines, bank logs, doctored emails, and a dramatized breakdown of how Ms. Elara Wynn emotionally collapsed and falsified estate documents during recovery. The judge never looked at me. Not yet, but I looked at her, not to plead, not to persuade, only to measure the weight of timing. Because when the clerk asked me, "Do you have evidence to support your counterclaim?" I stepped forward, and placed one object on the bench, a worn black archive box. No label, no barcode, no digital footprint. Just one name burned into the top flap: Custodian Protocol, E. Wynn, Tier 0. The courtroom shifted. Cameras clicked, my cousin coughed, and I simply said, "This isn't evidence, it's history, and you're all written into it." The judge raised a brow. "Ms. Wynn, is that a threat?" I smiled for the first time. "No, Your Honor, it's a backup." Because they thought they'd deleted me from the will, but I wasn't the file. I was the failsafe, and the archive was still breathing. There's a photograph that always sat in my grandfather's study, black and white, framed in brushed steel, taken in 1967 at the foundation signing of a bank that no longer officially exists. Most people saw men in suits shaking hands under a government seal. A legacy photo. But I saw the anomaly. In the bottom right corner, just above the polished shoes, a silver pen angled ever so slightly east. The only item not cast in shadow. The only object he never mentioned. After the courtroom, I returned to the study. The place was locked, untouched for a year. But the code hadn't changed. 7130, the last digits of my grandmother's badge from the resistance. Inside, the air smelled of camphor and unfinished wars. I took down the photo, and with a scalpel from my travel kit, I slid open the back. There it was, a flat titanium key, dull, unassuming, but marked with 3 etched characters. Aviso. My heart slowed, not sped, slowed, because Viso wasn't just a vault key, it was a final command. A last access authorization for a system built beneath the main archive. A ghost protocol created by the founder himself. No one knew it existed, not even the circle's highest ranks, except maybe my mother. The moment I held the key, the frame buzzed faintly in my hands. Static. Then a hidden e-ink display activated for 2 seconds. Protocol unlocked. Awaiting location, Arx Obscura. My fingertips burned cold. Because Arx Obscura wasn't a place on any map, it was a dead zone, a silent zone, and I was being summoned there, not as an heir, but as the one meant to unseal the truth, or be buried with it. The courtroom was colder that morning, not by temperature, but by tone. Someone had tampered with the schedule. The judge called the session early. No bailiff knock. No media in the hallway, just us. And the air. Too quiet, like it was bracing. I sat at the defendant's table. Alone. No legal team. Just a small recorder in my palm, activated by touch, encrypted beyond federal specs. The opposing counsel cleared her throat. "Your Honor, we move to dismiss Ms. Wynn's claims in full. Her so-called archive is unverified. Her key is irrelevant, and her conduct, a masterclass in deflection." The judge tilted her head. "I see." Then she looked at me. "Ms. Wynn, any final rebuttal?" I nodded once, tapped the recorder in my hand 3 times, and across the court speakers, a voice crackled to life. "Elara, if you're hearing this, it means the key has been found." What they told you about the estate, the archive, your inheritance was never the truth. The custodian circle forged more than documents. They erased outcomes. It was my grandfather, dead 12 years, but perfectly clear. The audio wasn't part of any system, not stored in evidence, not logged on court servers, yet there it was, playing through every hidden speaker in that chamber. Faces paled, chairs creaked. The stenographer stopped typing. The judge froze. "Where did you get this?" I didn't answer, because I didn't need to. Behind me, a woman in a gray coat entered through the side door. No badge, no ID. But when the guards moved to intercept her, they didn't because they recognized her. Because she wasn't here for them. She stepped forward, placed a sealed envelope on the judge's bench. Inside, a second copy of the audio, handwritten annotations, and a single line at the bottom in ink that shimmered faintly. Verified by custodian tier 0, Elara Wynn. My mother, the woman they said was dead. The woman they swore had abandoned the circle and me. But now, her voice echoed louder than their lies. They thought the recording would be my last card. They were wrong. The judge called a recess. The courtroom slowly emptied, but I didn't leave. I stayed, staring at the envelope still resting on the bench like it held gravity. Then a voice behind me, quiet, even measured. "It's begun, hasn't it?" Elara Wynn, my cousin, the one who used to call me kid when we were children, the one who was second in line until I came back. She sat beside me without asking, didn't look at me. "You realize what happens now? Once tier 0 is triggered, no one walks away untouched. Not you, not me, not even the judge." She was right. Tier 0 wasn't just a failsafe. It was a reckoning. A buried protocol from Maeve's era that rewound everything. Every asset transfer, every silent signature, every lie the circle had wrapped in gold. It would unmake the estate, and everyone involved would be forced to answer for it. Helena placed something small on the table between us. A jet black USB, unlabeled, laser-etched with a single symbol, Omega. This resets the ledger. It wipes everything back to origin, but it needs 2 bio signs. Mine. And yours. I hesitated. Why me? She didn't smile. She didn't blink. Because she trusted you to finish it. Because you're not just an heir, Elara. You're the lock and the key. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't about inheritance, not anymore. This was about legacy, about survival. Maeve hadn't just left me a box. She'd left me the trigger to a system designed to erase itself, unless someone rewrote the ending. The turn wasn't a plot twist. It was the moment I realized I wasn't just part of the story. I was the protocol. The meeting wasn't scheduled. It wasn't official. It didn't even have a location, just a time and a signal. At 2:17 a.m., a single text flashed on my burner phone. "The vault speaks. Come unarmed." The coordinates traced to a parking garage beneath an abandoned Cold War archive in Zurich. No cameras, no witnesses, only 4 people waiting in the concrete dark, the remaining heirs of the custodian circle. Each of them had once been power brokers in shadows. Now they looked like ghosts wearing designer gilt. Julian, the financier, Marissa, the biotech heir, Anton, the former diplomat, and Ava, she was the one who spoke. "You brought it, didn't you?" she asked. I didn't answer. Instead, I placed the black USB on the table between us. Its laser-etched Omega caught the dull glow of a flickering light. Julian stepped forward, voice low. "We all knew Maeve would leave a failsafe. We just didn't expect it to be you." I held my stare. Ava folded her arms. "Let's not pretend this is about justice. This is about leverage, so here's our offer. Give us the key. Walk away clean. No smear campaign, no offshore lockouts. You disappear safe. I almost laughed. You want the protocol, but you're not offering silence, you're offering anesthesia. Anton leaned in, almost whispering. This circle can be erased in 2 strokes, but with that code, we can reshape it. No more heirs, just architects, and you get your life back. My hand hovered over the USB. For a second, I felt the weight of it all pressing down like history in a vice. Then I looked Ava in the eye. Maeve didn't build this circle for silence. She built it to expose every lie dressed as legacy. They didn't speak again, but I could feel it, their fear curdling into something worse, respect. I picked up the USB, slid it back into my coat. You don't get to write the ending, you were never the author. And then I left, no shots fired, no signatures exchanged. Just 4 dynasties left sitting in a garage, trying to rewrite a system they never truly controlled. Cape Verde wasn't on any map Maeve left behind, but it lived in the metadata, hidden in the footnote of an old hard drive log. Latitude, longitude, no label, just a time-stamped line, red route activated. 14-04-12. Location, Boa Vista. When I landed, the sky was silent, washed in wind and salt. I didn't expect anyone to be waiting, but she was, my mother, hair gone silver, eyes still sharp as the day she walked away. She didn't say my name, didn't cry. She just nodded, like she'd been preparing for this moment since I was born. We drove inland, past abandoned radio towers and satellite dishes rusted by sun, to a house with no locks, only light. Inside, there was a single terminal, old, dust-covered, but live. You think Maeve built the circle, she said. She didn't, she finished it. My breath caught. She walked to a drawer, pulled out a black-bound book. Inside, schematics, protocols, and signatures. The earliest entries were Maeve S. They were hers, my mother S. We started the custodian circle when we realized the real legacy wasn't wealth. It was silence, generational silence. Every unspoken truth, layered like bricks over a buried grave. She handed me a page. The title read, Project Echo. Underneath, activate only when blood rewrites the pattern. I looked at her, saw it now, not betrayal, but sacrifice. She hadn't abandoned me. She'd shielded me. I was the blueprint, she said, but you're the overwrite. Then she reached into her coat pocket, handed me a faded photo. A girl, 10 years old, standing in front of the first archive site. It was me. We've been preparing you your whole life, every absence, every silence, every unanswered question was the training Maeve and I agreed on. Why? I whispered. She looked me in the eye. Because only someone raised outside the system could reset it, not with power, but with truth. And just like that, I realized the circle wasn't collapsing, it was evolving. The archive recognized me before the guards did. No retinal scan, no fingerprint, just the way I walked through the vault door like I belonged. Because by now, I did. The interface lit up before I even touched it. A soft pulse. Like a heartbeat. Welcome, Echo Origin. The voice was Maeve S. It wasn't my mother S. It was mine, but younger, preserved from some old biometric pattern. Like they had scanned my voice before I ever knew it mattered. Protocol engagement in progress. Phase IV unlocked, awaiting overwrite authorization. And then the walls began to shift, not physically, but in memory. The archive didn't store files, it stored timelines. Dozens of them, hundreds. Every sealed agreement, every manipulation of succession, every erased name. and each one linked back to a single line of code, echo 01 origin. Revision equals null, null. They had never planned to let me write my own story. I was the daughter of silence, the byproduct of buried wars until now. A screen opened. 6 names flashed in red, custodians, the last survivors of the founding line, and then, execute YN. That's when I understood. This wasn't a legacy vault, it was a kill switch. The Echo protocol wasn't just for record keeping. It was designed to purge the entire system, unless the rightful heir rewrote it line by line. All overwrite rights reserved to Echo origin. Final key required, voice authentication. I stepped forward, my hand hovered over the console. "I'm not here to erase what you built," I whispered. "I'm here to reframe it." The console paused, then accepted the input, and suddenly everything slowed, because with one breath, one signature, one truth, I became not just the last daughter of the circle, but its first author. There was one node left, tucked behind 7 layers of encryption, locked behind a biometric firewall, and sealed with a signature I hadn't seen in years. Maeve S. To Echo, if you're reading this, then the system let you in. And that means the system finally broke. I stared at the flickering screen. Her voice was calm, but beneath it I could hear fatigue, the kind that comes after years of building in secret, years of watching truth rot behind glass. We told everyone the circle was built to protect legacies. Wealth, family, security, that was the first lie. What it really protected was silence and control. The screen shifted. A timeline appeared. Photos, audio snippets, voice logs, all strung together like veins. My mother, Maeve, the others, all of them had lied, but not to hurt me, to prepare me. "Elara, you were never supposed to lead the circle. You were supposed to end it." I swallowed hard. Maeve's voice was firm now. "This archive doesn't need a new queen, it needs an honest grave." But I couldn't do it. I didn't have the distance. I loved it too much, even as I watched it ruin us. That's why I lied. That's why I made you hate me. Because anger survives where love hesitates. She looked straight into the camera now, eyes like iron. "Do it, Elara. Burn it. Rewrite the code, not to preserve what we were, but to free who you could become." The message ended, and the screen went black. I sat there for a long time, not crying, not shaking, just quiet. Then I reached for the last terminal key. Typed in a single phrase, Echo Protocol. Final equals override. The servers hummed like breath returning. Old data flickered. Lies collapsed. And for the first time, the circle exhaled something it never knew how to hold: truth. I didn't walk away from the archive that night. I walked out of a legacy and into a new code, one not written by bloodlines or fear, but by choice. My name is Elara, daughter of silence, breaker of the circle. And that was the last lie I let them tell.